Hey guys, so BlizzCon just happened, and boy did they have a lot to announce for World of Warcraft. It's actually crazy how much content is coming out, where before we just had retail, soon we will have retail, classic, classic era, classic hardcore, solo self-found hardcore, and now their latest season of vanilla, Season of Discovery. Whatever your favorites are, there's never been this level of WoW content at our fingertips, so even if you don't care about this new season, there's so much still to love about WoW, and it honestly makes me super happy because in 2017-ish, I really thought I was done with WoW forever. There was nothing I really liked about it anymore, and fast forward today, it's my only game. But anyways, if you didn't know, Season of Discovery is a new classic experience that will gate the leveling initially at 25 and increment new content with each level band, the first being a 10-man raid version of Black Fathom Deeps, and then after a period of time, increase the level cap to 40 and 50 and 60, each bringing new content like a Scarlet Crusade raid, Karazhan Crypts, and so on. Additionally, they're also including hidden runes that can be attached to gear slots to unlock abilities from outside of vanilla or even entirely new abilities that we've never seen before. I think everyone was really hoping for a Classic Plus announcement for the most part, but I don't think anyone was expecting this. Most people wanted new and unreleased content vanilla WoW coupled with a few class changes to shake up the meta maybe. I actually wrote a whole script about what I'd like to see out of Classic Plus, and as I was writing it, I kind of decided I didn't actually want to see Classic Plus because I was pretty sure there was no way Blizzard could do it without adding the WoW token, and I'm reluctant to even say that out of fear of speaking it into existence. But that being said, before I get into the weeds too much here, I'd like to preface everything with I'm actually really excited to try this new season. This video is not intended to bash Season of Discovery or say it's not going to be fun. I think it's going to be a blast, and I'm going to play the hell out of it, but I am concerned with some of the concepts and how they're going to be implemented. This idea seems pretty chaotic, and I'm not sure how they're going to adjust the world for these power-ups. So I wanted to highlight them and discuss some of the concerns we might be facing in our upcoming adventure into Season of Discovery, and discuss some of the more exciting features we'll get to work with. So, as we all know, one of the more exciting and most anticipated concepts of a Classic Plus would be class changes. A good amount of players, especially the PvE community, have been wanting to experience vanilla that just isn't dominated by one class. We've seen how TBC and Wrath approach these class changes. TBC takes a more general approach, reworking some talents, adding a few abilities and passives, and creating tailored gear to each specialization. And for the most part, it resulted in pretty good class balance in both PvP and PvE. It wasn't perfect, but most people associate TBC positively with class improvements, and I share that sentiment. My issue with TBC was the generalization of itemization, the nerfing of vanilla items, killing the old world, and generally just shrinking the game and not expanding it. And that's part of why we all wanted something like Classic Plus or Season of Discovery in the first place. And if you want to hear me talk about that more and break it down, you can check out my Why Classic Era video. Anyways, I like TBC's approach to class design because they did it pretty conservatively, improving classes where they needed it without making one class too powerful or overdoing it. And this is my primary concern with ruining in Season of Discovery. I worry that adding all of this at once creates too much chaos, and they might be overdoing it. Some class is going to be broken, and I think there's a strong argument for Paladin or Mage here. And again, let me restate that I'm only voicing a concern here. I'm very excited about ruining, and I think it's great, creative, and fun, but it needs to be done correctly or things can get out of hand. Here we can see that some of the class improvements come in the form of adding abilities straight from other expansions, slightly modified for vanilla, and while we don't know exactly what all of the runes are going to be, we can see that this is going to be a major power boost. The aspect about this that I love though is that you have to go out and find the runes and unlock the abilities. Yeah, eventually there will be add-ons and guides that just show you where all of them are, but the season release in the first few weeks or days, it's going to be a ton of fun getting to explore our favorite zones and unlock new runes. Also, because these are runed abilities, meaning they're attached to gear slots, it acts as a natural way to balance the class design by not letting the player have every single ability at the same time, and they instead have to swap them out. This is super interesting and fun, and it's going to make drop-in combat and gear swapping all the more powerful. It's just super important they pay attention to what abilities a class can have for each slot, and I'm sure they're putting lots of thought into this, but it needs to be a continued thought and something that needs to be monitored and administered throughout each content phase. Naturally, there's going to be class power imbalance at different level bands. That's always going to exist, and it's not the biggest deal in the world if one class is way stronger at a certain level than another, but if it's egregious, they have plenty of opportunity to tweak it, and from what I've read, they're planning on doing so. It's just going to be really hard for Blizzard to manage all of this change, and that's why it's such a good idea that they're releasing the content in level bands, because it gives them plenty of opportunity to manage these decisions for each phase. With these new runes, we also see classes receiving abilities to fill new roles, such as mages getting healing abilities, locks, rogues, shaman, and paladins are all tanking now. Some of these I think are really cool and we needed, and others I just don't really understand. I'm sure that there are people out there who wanted mage healers. It's a class fantasy that's existed in the genre, but mages have always been super powerful in both PvE and PvP. I just didn't really think they needed healing attributes. In vanilla, they're already such a solid and complete class that the idea of a mage being able to endlessly poly you and then heal to full sounds totally broken. And if it does end up being broken, Blizzard is in a real pickle because they can't just swap the runes around so that people don't take it for PvP, because if it's broken, then they're always going to use them, or they'll poly, blink away, drop combat, gear swap, and then heal farm you. And that's really the point I was trying to get at with them not taking a gentle approach to class improvements. It puts them in a bind that could have been solved with slowly implementing these types of things. So I don't know. I'm sure people are going to try this out and it'll be a lot of fun for them. Hopefully every other class becomes powerful enough to counter. And now that I'm talking about all this, I'm thinking of ways to counter, and this is going to be a lot of fun to try to figure out. But anyways, moving on. I get the main idea behind wanting to add all of these role options to the game so that there are plenty of tanks and healers and groups are faster and easier to create. We definitely always wanted pally raid tanks. I love the idea of shaman tanking. It adds a third tank on the horde side. It was really always already a thing that you could do while leveling in dungeons. I've shaman tanked all the way through Sunken Temple. Earthbiter has always generated threat. Earth Shock does so much threat that it really already was used as a taunt. Lightning Shield generates passive threat. The problem was they went very quickly and they didn't have good avoidance. Very similar to the issues pally tanks faced. They couldn't become uncrushable like warriors who can shield block, shield wall, last stand. So enabling these classes to tank I think is a great idea. I'm just not sure how to feel about lock and rogue tanking. Locks make more sense to me because they're already so tanky for casters, and lock tanking for certain bosses has always been a thing. Rogue makes less sense to me class fantasy wise. They're really already capable of doing it in vanilla just as is. My buddy loves rogue tanking a mob or two because Rogue's dodge is so high that they avoid like crazy, and their raw damage makes them generate good threat. It's kind of like Fury Warrior tanking, only more RNG when it comes to damage taken. I'm not trying to complain. If it makes grouping faster, I'm okay with it. I'm really just calling these out because I'm not thrilled about them, and I'd love to hear y'all's takes. The next thing I want to bring up is open world battlegrounds. The first being the Ashenvale event that was announced, where faction captains spawn in encampments with lesser leaders. It's really like an open world All-Track Valley. I want to say I love this idea. World PvP is one of my favorite aspects of vanilla. My main concern here is how overpowered all of these classes are going to be. Is PvP just going to be even burstier than it already is in vanilla? Every class has even more buttons to push, and all of these abilities were introduced in expansions that had resilience PvP gear, and I'm worried that resilience is going to be the only solution to this problem. I've never been a big fan of resilience. It's a stat that's born out of necessity, yes, but there's something satisfying about seeing a big number on your screen, and I think that's part of the charm of vanilla. You always know how much damage you're doing to that person, you know relatively how much health that other player probably has, and yeah, I'm just not sure with all these new abilities what PvP is going to look like. As of right now, the talent trees are supposed to be exactly the same as they are in vanilla, so I really can't help but think about a Ret Reckoning Paladin. Paladins in vanilla have typically always been written off as healers, but those who were able to get the right gear could become absolute death in PvP, really only struggling to kill certain specs in like a duel. I know there's doubters out there, so I'll move on from that point, but think about this scenario. A Ret Rec Paladin charging in on a shaman that's been bursting on him. Every crit, he's getting another white swing. He's got like 5 stacks of Reckoning. That shaman's burst shreds the pally's health, right? So he just bubbles before he dies, and he's finally able to close the gap. And when he swings, he'll be swinging for 5 white attacks. That's 5 chances to proc Seal of Command, Hand of Justice, maybe getting an extra white swing, and Crusader enchant. Then the pal uses Hammer of Justice, Judge's Command for double damage, then Crusader strikes, Divine Storms, and Exorcism. If that shaman can't kill him because of bubble, how does the shaman counter? Where is his opportunity to survive in that scenario? Assuming the shaman lived through the traditional vanilla burst, the paladin now has 3 more instant attacks to finish the job. Paladins won't have Reckoning at level 25, so we don't have to worry about it just yet, but I definitely think it will be a problem, as all of those abilities came out after Reckoning had been nerfed to no longer charge up to 5 stacks. I already talked about how mage PvP could be a problem in Season of Discovery, so I won't harp on this anymore. I just think it's worth noting and could be pretty broken and piss a lot of people off. Like I said, Blizzard has lots of opportunities to make adjustments as we go. There's just so much room for error here that it's concerning. Another question that arises from the Ashenvale PvP event is what happens to it after the level cap is raised. Hopefully we will see this content get boosted to level 40 and 50 and 60 as we do, especially because it comes with a world buff, and even if the buff is only plus 35 attack power, people are going to want to use it. Winterfall Firewater sells for 40 gold on Classic Era servers as of right now. This also makes me concerned with how the servers are going to handle this traffic. If you've played a Classic launch, then you know how laggy the server can get, even with layering when there's that many people in one location all at once. Also with layering, how is that going to affect the PvP event? I'd imagine that the event is kicked off in the zone on every layer, but with there being potential several layers going on at once, would that mean that there are several different outcomes of the event, meaning each layer has its own winning and losing faction? What if the event gets kicked off and you run over to the battle area and post a message in zone chat for a group invite, but you get invited to a layer where they're getting their ass kicked? Could you then try to jump to a layer where your faction is winning? Will it just be people jumping around until they're on a layer that's just their faction so they can steamroll the PvP aspect of the event? And if they didn't do layering at all, would it just be like 2 frames per second? I'm not sure how it will work or what the solve is here. I'm not sure if there's like some sort of in-zone queuing or waiting screen or that you could do. That sounds lame. While I love this idea, Blizzard, I think, has a tendency to overlook server capability for these types of things. We saw a similar situation with Wintergrasp in the original Wrath of the Lich King. To make it fair and more stable for Wrath Classic, they made it a queuable battleground. This isn't exactly the same thing because it isn't triggered every hour. It's triggered by kills in the zone, I believe. So I'm anxious to play it. I just want it to be playable. All in all, I'm very excited for all of this. I do think it's going to be chaotic, but it's going to be a lot of fun learning how to work with all of these new features and changes. This style of release makes every content phase feel like the original Classic Beta and level cap, but we also are beta testing the first season of Classic Plus. I hope I didn't come off like I'm complaining or bitching. There's already been a lot of controversy around Season of Discovery, and it's only been a few days. I don't think it's fair to just write it off yet, as we haven't even gotten to play it. There's going to be bugs and issues, but we're essentially beta testing the game, and this aspect is actually super attractive to me. The Classic WoW beta was a ton of fun to watch and play because the level 30 and 40 meta. We got to see different ways to play the classes, and there was a ton of theory crafting around the best gear, the best specs, and sleeper quest rewards that will be OP at level cap, and that's going to be exaggerated even more with the new gear coming out of each new raid. I'm super excited to get to experience that multiple times this season at the different level brackets. The concerns I all brought up here are completely valid, but they shouldn't deter anyone from playing. It isn't even out yet, and they've already said that the abilities, the values, rune slots, and balancing are all completely subject to change, and we haven't even seen all of them yet. By releasing this in level bands, we could see a lot of these being moved around, nerfed, and buffed as the content continues. Part of what made vanilla so fun in the first place is that anything the developers thought was cool would be added into the game, and we just really got to see the impetus of all those little one-time use items, reputation rewards, and endless consumes come together in the Makara tournament from OTK. And so I really think Blizzard is trying to bring that spirit back into the game, and I think they've done so with this season so far. The past few years, we've seen a ton of new tech, strategy, and discovery come out of Classic WoW, Hardcore, and Classic Era. For what was thought to have been a beaten game, people have been able to figure out how to do logout skips, insane resistance and gear swaps, or how to make insane, silly plays with items and quest rewards, and I can't wait to play something that is fresh and new and have to figure everything out at the same time as everyone else. Even after the add-ons and guides come out, people are still going to be building upon them and building upon them just as they have for the past 19 years of vanilla WoW. Every change that Blizzard makes is going to force creativity, innovation, and discovery, and after all, that's the entire point. And if it totally blows and they never fix anything, there's always Classic Era. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you out there.